I'm curious about how much this film has given you a new sense of self, because it stems from that sequence with AJ and Yvonne when they're having that great discussion. So I'm curious, how have things in your life shifted as a response of being a part of this film, taking in its reality, taking your characters' headspaces? Are you, I don't know, questioning organic fruit, or are you distancing yourself from the attention economy? Like, where are you with all that, and what did you gravitate towards?
There truly are so many fun themes within the movie to like reflect on and explore.
Yeah.
That we were exploring when we were making it, and certainly after having made it, and we watch it and we reflect on what we did, and like we find new kernels from all those sort of things. For me, a big part of this movie obviously is about fear and anxiety.
Sure.
Which in the time since then, I've kind of come to recognize how much fear and anxiety I'm always living with. And then as like our kind of world just keeps being the goddamn way that it is, it's like, yes, fear and anxiety is this thing that has a lot of power over how things are going, and we need to figure out how to manage that if we want to be healthy and balanced.
To me, it rests in, and you referenced the scene between AJ and Yvonne. To me, it rests in that line of the lesson, or what I take away from it is, I said, going back to source. You know, in our industry, in the world today, with so much noise and a lot of terrible, terrible things going on, is how do we maintain, how do we practice fine-tuning those attitudinal muscles within us for a connection to something that's greater than ourselves, which is art making, which is whatever form of a higher power or a spirit that drives you in your life, what that looks like and feels like, whether that is food or nature or friendship or partnerships, all these themes that Pete mentions. To me, it's making those questions that you have in your head turn into more simple answers within yourself of what gets me up every day in this industry, in this world, and how do we achieve a sense of peace within ourselves. And I think that's a question for every person to answer on their own. It's a different answer.
Yeah. Zoe's thinking very hard over there.
I am.
I'm still thinking about the word attitudinal. I'm so impressed. Attitudinal. It's a hard word to say.
It wasn't mine. You know who it's from? It's from this book, A Course in Miracles. Marianne Williamson.
Marianne Williamson.
Yeah. She talks about the attitudinal muscles like working, which is on the sort of vertical plane within yourself, and so you're able to move across the horizontal and the actions that you do in your daily life.
Obsessed.
Yeah, I think a big thing that Tick gave me was a return to play and curiosity, and it really activated imagination. And that was something that I didn't realize I'd been distanced from in other work, and so it was also like, right, this can be a joyful process. Like filmmaking can be joyful. So that's something I really want to take or carry with me into the next processes.
Yeah, I would say that I'm on a similar wavelength wherein I have spoken a lot about the fact that, like, you know, meeting Pete when I did, which was like this moment when I was doing, like, when we were editing a documentary that was like a sort of like recap of one of the most significant, like, shifting moments of my life, and a moment that put a lot of pressure upon me, which was like when Slave Play got nominated for all these Tonys. It became this moment where, like, success was like feeling like stilting, you know, like it made me feel like I couldn't do something unless I did something better or like won again, you know, in some major way. And then doing this reminded me that, like, the impulse for art making wasn't winning anything. It was always about like finding collaborators and like giving them the best gifts possible and having fun doing that. And like, you know, I think about James, who I love so deeply, and how there were not gay characters in Slave Play until I went to the beach with him and our friend Atu, and I was like, oh my god, like I want to see them in my play, and I have the power to just do that. And even though it's not in my outline, I can just put them in the play. And then I did. I wrote roles for them, and they were there. And I think that spirit got lost a bit. Not lost, but just like got quiet in like sort of the pursuit to like maintain this like sort of veneer of success. And the success was always in doing that, right? And that's what this was. Process over product.
Yeah.
Return to source.
Return to source.
Return to source. Yeah. I think there's like so many, you know, there's so many ways to make a film, and Pete and I obviously, well, maybe not obviously, we collaborated before and made films like this before. But, and I would say, you know, I learned so much on this project about filmmaking in general. And, you know, I rented a house upstate, and this was the first of a few, I wanted to make as many micro-budget films as possible in 1 year in a rented house and kind of try and see if it was possible. Strike hit, and then it was kind of perfect timing because then all you could do was make micro-budget films. So this was the first one. And Pete and I had worked this way before, and everyone is a little bit different. And this one was like, it was just the most experimental, I think, of the independent films that I've made, because, you know, we work in so many different aspects of filmmaking. But yeah, this was just so highly experimental, and it felt this group in particular felt game, you know, to just take some risks. The way that this film was made, it made it feel that the project was very much so a live thing.
Yeah.
That you have to kind of keep holding and keep feeding and keep it alive, you know, to make it to the end. Especially because we're writing it as it's going, so it's literally being built as we're going, right? So it's a very experiential like film too, in this weird way.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of that, like from a writer's and story shaping, character shaping perspective, how scientific did you get with like the mechanics of a tick or an insect? Because obviously from the visual language perspective, you whenever Yvonne has control, the camera feels static, like it's an insect on the wall, kind of in between the flying and crawling around. But then when it becomes more out of control, all these other senses start going, like where the score comes in, it has a fluttering sound, or the sound effects, which I'm so curious to know like how glamorous y'all felt eating things and then having the yummy noises amped up. But yeah, I'm just curious about like how did you not overwhelm yourself with taking on like all these insect ideas and weaving them into the story?
The way you don't get overwhelmed is you operate through intuition.
Sure.
And you trust yourself and you trust your intuition. So like there was lots of preparation before making this movie. All the shit we made, all the life we had lived was that preparation, as well as reading about ticks, reading about the life cycle of ticks. Also, I think about you going to school first studying playwriting, and that like you brought that science of storytelling to it, where you're like plotting out, you know, putting these scenes up on the board. And it's like all this preparation is feeding into the decisions we're going to make. Understanding that like when the way ticks reproduce is the male and the female have sex and then the male dies. And being like, interesting. Let that seep in, you know, like let that become part of the DNA of these things that decisions we're eventually going to make. When we made them, then like as you make the decisions, I don't directly reference that stuff. I'm just like, it's in there. I trust that I put it in there. You can't control, you know, everything or anything, actually. That's how life is. But by kind of like preparing in that way, by like putting that ingredients in the bowl, something like does come out of it. Something cohesive does come out of it. All those ideas are seen. They do make the thing.
Wait, we haven't. I realized this as you asked this question. You're the first one to ask us anything about ticks. We haven't talked about the craziest thing that happened when we got to the book. Tick Magic. Tick Magic.
Yeah.
Got to be the title for a second.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
In the house, there was this random book called Tick Magic that had like it was just like about like best practices if you like find yourself like getting bitten by a tick and like living with Lyme. It's like
it was self-published.
It was self-published. It was
Yeah,
insane.
yeah.
And we just like
Very
found
AJ.
it. It was like it was very AJ coded.
Yeah.
And like she talked about nips and nymph nests and like
Tickles.
tickles.
Baby ticks are called tickles.
Well, the baby ticks are called
Yeah.
nymphs, and then
Right.
like teenage ticks are called tickles.
Right.
Insane. But we had all this knowledge from that book. Then like whatever Google, because before Google just became like Gemini / ChatGPT,
Yeah.
we like definitely went down a lot of rabbit holes of getting every bit of thing. And I think we just like fed ourselves a lot.
Well, it was fun to watch your process too,
Yeah.
specifically,
Definitely.
Jeremy, because I had seen Slave play before I went to Broadway, but I didn't know any of these people at all, really, before we started this. And I was like, there were just several moments where I was like, whoa, I'm here. I'm getting to see the process and really see Jeremy's brain work and how he pulls from gossip to the internet. I mean, they kind of are the
Double
same
Gemini.
thing. Yeah. Right. Own lived
Pinter.
experience.
Pinter,
Yeah. Shakespeare.
Aristotle.
Yeah, Aristotle. Like, and that was really fun. You brought in research in a way that, I think actually really grounded us often.
Yeah, like live research.
Yeah, and he was like last
And
night
it-
at 3 a.m.
And it comes in. It comes in at all times of day.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're not prepared to listen to it, and then but it feeds everything of the conversation. But this book that he's talking about, there was talking about like the life cycle of a tick, but there was this really odd sort of reverence to the spirituality of ticks, of the power of ticks, and what that does to people as a society. And I think that's where we learned about how a tick can smell you.
No, it was
From-
in the YouTube video.
Okay.
It was in the YouTube video.
Oh,
It was
okay.
a 50. Remember when we watched that YouTube
I did.
video? There was this weird YouTube video that's made for like kids, maybe. It was like so bizarre. We're like, a tick can smell you from 50, or can sense you from 50 feet away. And we're like,
It's
how?
that big away.
Yeah.
We're like, that doesn't make any sense. And we Googled it, and I was like, that is real. It's not just a YouTube lie. That's a Googleable lie.
And then
or it's real.
Yeah, and then we learned that before I then had to walk in the field.
Yeah.
I just kept hearing that refrain.
Yeah.
A tick can smell you from 50 feet away.
That's amazing. What about in terms of how maybe all of that informed the language of the characters? Because I think many people going forward after watching this film will have to assign a sunset with the word resplendent going forward. But is there it obviously sounds like this is a hugely collaborative process. Things were constantly changing. Things were informing behaviors and how what people would say, what the characters would say. But was there a single launching pad for each of you, with a line of dialogue or a single scene that best gave you the greatest in for this reality?
I went to Pete and I said, well, he's seen me do a couple impressions and things, and as far as that, it was, I wanted Camille to feel otherworldly in a certain way, and you're not sure where she comes from or where she's going, So I tried something there, but I was like, Pete, what if she's a biodynamic interior designer?
Yeah, my
Which
ears
makes-
perked up.
Right.
And Pete laughed, and then I thought, that's it.
Yeah.
And that was kind of what sent me into it.
Because Callie had actually made a movie like this with Pete before, she became a great like sort of Rosetta Stone for us like understanding Pete's process, because sometimes as an actor it can feel like you're like learning, you're like you know, like if playing a guitar is like knowing how to act, sometimes with Pete it's like having to relearn how to play the guitar upside down, because he like is so specific about like what he wants from you. And what she taught us was like all these things, just like he's saying this thing and it feels weird, but do it, it'll make sense. And like, or like, you know, if he laughs, he liked it. Like little things like that become these like great barometers for how to like do this. And I think that one of the things that really like sort of like popped up for me or let me get into the role is that I had told him I wanted to have like a lower BPM with my character. Like I felt like I get asked to play a lot of like characters that like inject a lot of energy into TV shows, etc. And that's not what I trained to do. Like, you know, I was like mainly like sort of a tragedy actor, and then now my life is like all comedy, and because I'm funny, I like being funny. But I was like, I want to show you how to do something different. And he was like, I'll give you that. But the first day he had us talk in that scene around the table. So slowly, and I was like, I don't know how to do this. What does he want us to do? And I thought we all felt a little crazy because it was late, we had eaten, but it was like
it was the first scene.
Yeah, it was the first group scene of dialogue, and it felt like he kept like turning the notch down. I was like, this is so weird. It's gonna look so bad. And then the minute I did it, I felt myself enter a rhythm that wasn't Jeremy, it wasn't Pete, it was the true beauty of being a chick, and I was like, oh, that's where Isaac is. Lollygagged. You know what I mean? Like, it was really bad.
The feedback that I got from this actor that I know that saw it, he said what was so exciting to me was he didn't know at any moment what the character was going to say or how they were going to finish that line or thought or sentence. And they were just on edge because of that in a good way. So that slower rhythm and pace, it could have gone anywhere.
Yeah, it felt simultaneously unpredictable but purposeful too.
It's terrifying to like hang on each word. Because you're like, are we gonna fall? Or are we gonna keep going? With Yvonne, I kind of was Yvonne insofar as I didn't know anybody really stepping into this project. Everybody had sort of a working relationship, except me, and we used that.
It was really interesting to see her try to tune into their frequency, but she's also like, because you're trying to uphold, like, I'm being polite, but I also want to, you know,
protect myself.
I have a breaking point where I'm gonna interject and say how I feel.
Yeah.
So, that pressure was pretty intense.
Cool.
I'll cut you loose on asking about, because one of the things that this film got me thinking about, because of the title, is finding the beauty in things that are offbeat, strange, disturbing. So for each of you, what are those things that you find the beauty in that may be strange, offbeat, or disturbing?
Oh, wow.
That's a nice question.
Yeah, it's a great question. Oh, I don't
You have an answer.
I mean, no, I shouldn't have said anything. I made a noise. Honestly, I don't know how to answer that question, because I think the weirder things are, I am more attracted to them, by nature. But I remember being a child. I don't know why I'm sorry for this, but I remember being a child, and my mom, she's like, well, what do you think your life's purpose is? And I said, I was like 8 or 9 or something, and I said, I don't even know if I knew what this meant. I said, I don't know, somehow I want to be like a purveyor of weird beauty. That's what I said.
Wow.
You knew the word purveyor?
I did. Well, maybe I was a little older than 8.
Okay.
Maybe I was like 12. But
8.
I did know. My mom said that I said that, and I was like, I don't even know where that came from. But I like things. Personally, I think, you know, I love flowers and I love beautiful things, but I really like when something feels just that it is what it is. And
Truth.
Yeah, that's what it is. Truth. Yeah.
I would say mine is there are 2. I love gay murderers. I think there's something kind of beautiful about gay murderers because it really sucks to be young and gay for most of the 20th century and before, and to take that rage about what happened to you and then become a serial killer is cool. Not that I've done that. Just kidding. No, just into serial killers. I don't know. I like it. I'm a Gemini. And then I'm also really into. I'm like the sick thing that I think is kind of beautiful is like the queer art of failure. Like I think that, like there's something really beautiful and fun about seeing someone like trying to hit a note on TikTok, singing and failing really intensely, or like watching a kid in a play like come out and forget their lines, and remember that they're alive. And I think that like some of what attracted me to this process was like the ability to like sort of like put ourselves in a position to fail and like succeed in like keeping going despite whatever failure there might be. Like she might be asked to show up on day one ready to work but have just come from Copenhagen and is very sick, so cannot, and has to sleep for many, many hours, which happened. But that's not a failure that we like that stops us from making the movie, or like a failure of someone's like immune system that stops us from making the movie. It's something that like adds to the movie because then Yvonne gets to be like sort of like drenched and sick and tired the first like day of shooting. I don't know. I think all those things are really fun. But also murder is cool. When gays do it. When gays do murder, it's
No,
cool.
I wasn't looking at that. I was like, what do I say? No. What do I find beautiful that's weird or
disgusting or
disgusting
dark or not conventionally
Dark.
beautiful?
You like gay murder too.
No, I do like gay murder, but I think, and Jeremy was talking about this. Well, no, don't. He's I find. Well, no, I mean, there's to answer the previous questions, which connects the natural world. I was always into witchcraft and potions and potion making and that side of healing, which can be really dark at times. Talking about like wellness culture of this film, where people are talking about it in that way, and like the dark side of goop. Like, what is that? But what things? I'm sorry.
Is there a light side of goop?
That feels like Discovery Channel, like Discovery Plus like documentary, the dark side of goop.
I'm gonna call Gwyneth. I'm gonna talk. I find, psychological thrillers, but specifically about obsession and love, and how I think a lot there's a lot of sex in my work, like Jeremy and I have a lot of there's a lot of sexual energy and obsession, and how I'm curious, and I think I find very beautiful that's not talked about a lot, is how love and withdrawal from such can be just as powerful as even more powerful, scientifically proven, more powerful than withdrawal from heroin. And what that does to the human body and the psyche, and what people will do in order to get it back. Maybe it's murder.
Murder.
But I'm really fascinated, and I think there's a beauty in what that does to the human brain.
Right.
Scorpio.
Yeah, Scorpio rising.
I was gonna say that
I love flowers.
Yeah, I was gonna say I love when somebody's toes are splooging out of their sandals.
I love that.
I love when the hem of a pant gets tucked in somebody's sock or shoe.
Beautiful.
I love crooked teeth and scars and like gray hair.
Okay, John did.
No, Mary Oliver or something. It's so good.
Tattoo that on my lower back.
And it's interesting. I love all those things in everything else but me. And this film and Pete's process and really Pete and this company of extraordinary artists, they all asked me to bring all all of me to this project, and we were all asked to bring all of ourselves to this project, and yeah, that was beautiful, and it was the first time I felt like I actually could do that, and that they really meant it, and that I was really given permission to do it. And so it's scary to watch it, but also, I mean, it sounds cheesy, but very life affirming too.
I know I'm not the only one, but I do find beauty in things that are not necessarily traditionally considered beauty, whether it's like an empty parking lot or like a strip mall, like whether that's nostalgic for me or what, but like I just know that often I'll just be like, that's a beautiful parking lot. But even like things like in the beginning of the movie, there are these shots of the nature. Some of them are just like, yeah, that's a nice field there. But there's also this like tree where it's just like the trunk of a tree and the bark that is just like, I just love that tree.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that beautiful? Like it is to me. I don't know if necessarily it's in a book of beautiful things or whatever, but I'm like, I do find beauty in just like a thing like that. And then but then in like kind of like a bigger, less physical way, I think, and in connection to the movie, I think a kind of like disgusting thing is trauma that we can't avoid, and that like thus we really need to find beauty in it somehow, in order to heal. And so that's like a theme within the movie and a thing that I hope can be a takeaway from the movie as well, as we continue to like move forward with the continuously unavoidable traumas that await
In the field
of life.